next episode of Athletics for Life podcast. We're your hosts, Jeff and CD. And today we're going to continue on with our alumni series, interviewing a couple young gentlemen that went to ISU. So Jeff, you know them better than I do. Why don't you introduce our guests for today?
Yeah, we're very proud to have Jonte and Morris on our podcast today. Graduated last year, both in Australia right now. Jonte is originally from New Zealand, Morris from Australia. And they've been part of our programs here, sports programs. Very humble, very nice young gentlemen. So we're very happy and honored that they're here on our podcast today to share their story and to see what lessons they learned from our programs. So we're going over to Morris and Jonte. Super that you guys are here today. It's lovely to see you again, Morris and Jonte. We're running a podcast, Mr. CD and I, Athletics for Life, where we talk to alumni, athletics directors, coaches. We had some very interesting guests in the world of sports. Actually, Jonte, we had Mr. Richard Young, a doctor who works for the New Zealand national sports teams. So yeah, we had him on Wednesday. But we also do a alumni series where we talk to former ISU, ACU students. So it's great that you guys are here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. I didn't recognize the names when Mr. Copes had said, like, hey, we're going to interview Morris and Jonte. I was like, oh, okay. But now I recognize the faces now that you guys are here. So yeah, it's going to be good to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, great, guys. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing now, catching up some memories from ISU, and to share your story, talk a little bit about the sports, and just in general, how you guys are doing. So could you just quickly introduce yourself and then just tell us where you are right now and what you're doing right now? School, for example.
Morris, you can go.
Yeah, Morris first.
So my name is Morris Arnold. I'm 19. I've just moved back to Canberra after spending the last 5 years in Mongolia at ISU. And I just enlisted into the army at the start of this year, and I'm currently studying at the Australian Defence Force Academy, where I study aeronautical engineering. So eventually, after I graduate, I'll go on to become an officer in the Australian Army. So right now, it's just a lot of study and a lot of PT.
My name is Jonte Grose. I was in Mongolia for 3 years, and currently I'm in Brisbane, but I go to school in Perth, Australia. I'm studying business management, and yeah.
Great, guys.
And what sports did you guys play at ISU? I know I've seen you in basketball, but what sports did you play while you were there?
I played basketball and football, and yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. I got to do all three, but I'll definitely say my favorite was definitely basketball. As I grew up, kind of grew more into the love of it. But yeah, I got to play, like Jonte said, football, basketball, and volleyball.
Yeah, you made a massive transition, Morris, from football to basketball. When was that? Because you were massive into football or soccer, like, and then you were totally switched to basketball. When did that happen?
I would say towards the end of 11th grade. I used to always be like pretty short kid, but I would say as I kind of got like that tiny bit taller, and I guess just kept on playing like more and more sports, I was like, I guess this is what my body likes doing more. Now it's grown up a bit.
What are some things that you remember most from your time playing sports at ISU? What are some things that stick out for you?
I know for myself, probably have to be the trainings. Trainings and like the atmosphere. Even though we didn't have many teams that we could play with Mongolia, it was always very, I don't know, you always knew there was going to be a good rivalry, whether it's like ASU versus ISU or like another school, or even if we were fortunate to play against other Mongolian schools as well. That was probably my favorite part, because you knew there was, even though there wasn't a large amount of competition, it was always a fierce competition.
I would say my favorite part was always having something to look forward to, whether it's like a training on in the morning or the afternoon, or a game at the end of the week, or the big trip coming up. Like you would always have something like to look forward to, and I guess that kept me like pretty motivated, always like getting keen to either train or play games.
Guys, talking about that, those big trips and all the tournaments we did. How was it for you to now being from New Zealand and being from Australia to be in Mongolia and then going down to these places in China and Macau and to play these tournaments for ISU and for Mongolia? How was that?
I come from I come from a pretty small country town, so going to all these big cities was definitely a big shock for me, and especially like moving countries and being with a bunch of different kids. I'd say it's made me like a lot more open-minded, especially now that I'm back here in Australia. I can see my experiences are really, really different from a lot of my other friends. And especially in things like basketball training, they'll be calling drills one thing, I've known them another way, or they'll have offenses run this way and I've known them run a different way. So I guess it's just that real interconnectedness and also that like experience. Like I think it's stuff I'll definitely remember for the rest of my life, having that opportunity.
Yeah, like what Morris said, because I was from Perth, and normally a 2-hour flight from Perth is kind of either up north, or a 3-hour flight you go to Bali. But for us in Mongolia, it was a 2-hour flight and you're in Beijing, like China, which was pretty insane. How you go from like flying for 2 hours, you're in the same state, you fly for 2 hours and you're in a whole completely different country and culture, which I think was probably one of the best parts about it. You never, like, you're always able to go somewhere that wasn't too far away. So yeah.
That's cool. I'm curious about like the cultural difference. Whether did you notice it much coming to Mongolia and being in Mongolia? Like,
yeah, it was a big culture shock. Like you pulled up to ISU, I was to school, and everyone was so welcoming. Like this, the whole Mongolian community I found was quite like welcoming. And then it was cool because straight away you'd go on a school camp, or you'd be talking with your friends that were Mongolian nationals, and you were just able to really see that, like the interconnectedness of culture. And with all the different parties coming, so like for example, we'll be versing like the American school or the British school. Like there's so many different aspects of it, and you're just like, wow, like, this is insane how like in one small space there's so many different cultures, and you've got the Mongolian culture that is the primary one, but then you've also got all these different places that your friends are from and teachers are from. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and like learning from all of those, like everyone always has something different to contribute to the table. So like Jonte said, in like such a small space where everyone's working like in a team or collaboratively, like all those different approaches like really gets exploded in that small space.
I think more because your class, guys, it's more, you were very close with all the boys and the girls in your class. Are you still in contact with them weekly or on a daily basis?
Yeah, we all
I'd say
catch up, over social media, that sort of stuff, and everyone's kind of keen. Like I know Aldrich always keeps us updated with his volleyball, how that's going, and Darren as well, off in the ski field. So everyone's always sharing what they're up to, whether it's like uni or sport. And I think sport's a big part of like how we stay connected, whether it's just having a chat about the NBA or what's going on in the Champions League.
That's great, guys.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Because we had Darian and sorry, CD, go ahead.
I was just wondering, did you guys find it difficult to kind of transition back to home after being international? You kind of get used to being international, being around, everywhere, tons of other people, and then you go home and you're surrounded by people who maybe have never left.
The hardest part. Yeah, the hardest part would have had to be like when you're someone that, or when you've traveled a lot, you like talking about your travel, because like when I was in Mongolia, everyone has traveled because you're in the middle of like the world, so you're able to kind of relate with people about traveling, and everyone wants to talk about it. But when you kind of come back and people that have never traveled or never left, you just kind of just like, oh yeah, that's cool, but it's not a main focus. So I think that was probably the hardest part. Like you're so excited about it, but then you're kind of, I'm back to reality. Like I'm kind of have to get back to school and have to start doing this stuff, which it was hard, but slowly I've been back for a year now and I'm slowly starting to get back into how it goes. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, since everyone's like at this university, everyone's come from all over Australia. it's been pretty good. But I would say the hardest thing for me has probably been like the language or like traditions, like a lot of like different like Aussie sayings. Like I know Aussie slang is pretty notorious, but like just the little things like that where you like realize like, oh, like I didn't really like grow up with that as a saying, or like just little things like that.
Sure.
So guys, I went with you January 2019. We went to Shenzhen, remember, the last basketball trip. You were in grade 12. And then we came back. And then 2 weeks later, you had a game against ESM. I remember that Friday.
Yeah.
And then it was over. How have you coped with that whole situation of not having a normal graduate year? You know, sports stopped, everything stopped. You went back home. How was that for you guys?
Honestly, it was pretty hard. Sometimes, like when Morris and I are calling, like we had a moment, Morris and I, like on our last game with ESM, it was just him and I, and we're in the bleachers, and we're getting changed. And like now when we think about it, like that was our last sporting moment at ISU that we had together. So it's kind of cool that Morris and I have that where we're like reminisce about the days at the ESM. But yeah, it was hard knowing that we went from being so engulfed with our sports and our studies and stuff like that to then being excited that we had time off, and then being excited that we had a bit more time off, and then just kept on adding up and adding up. At the end of it, it was like a year, and we're just like, oh, all right, that's a little bit of that's a lot more than we were expecting. So that's probably, I find, to be the hardest part. So
yeah. For me, I would say kind of like Jonte said, the pace of everything. We went from like that one Friday where it's like, oh, you weren't too sure what's going to happen next, but you know you got a bit of time off, to just everything kind of picking up pace, but then also having like that whole year off. So I guess the toughest thing for me was kind of staying focused on like what I had to do next. So whether it was just like making sure I was doing my push-ups, getting ready for my fitness test, or like make sure I was on top of like applications or stuff like that. Just over that whole year, just that fast pace of both everything changing, but then also having that like so much time off. I think that was a pretty difficult balance to find.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird situation. You guys were kind of lucky. You got your ACAMIS trip in, and then everything shut down. We were supposed to host at ASU, and then I think we were actually supposed to play Orchalan the same day you guys played ESM. And Orchalan was like, well, I don't know. Okay, we're going to cancel. We'll see. Maybe next week it'll be fine. So like they canceled, and then everything shut down. This Chinese schools canceled everything. Like, so for us, it was like, oh yeah, it's just going to start. We're going to start to get some games, and then like, oh, everything's done.
Okay.
Like, so yeah, we weren't as lucky just down the road.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, well, just imagine if we were in China a week later or 2 weeks later. Just don't even think about that one.
The funny thing is, when we arrived back into Mongolia, you know how it's normally flu season when we came back?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh wow, they're taking a large step forward and making sure that like they're very safe with the flu, because like the border patrol were wearing like masks and goggles and everything. I was like,
Oh
wow,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and then it turned out to be coronavirus. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
I remember that because we came back and we were like, what did these people do with all these masks on? And we had no clue, right?
Yeah, it was COVID-19.
COVID-19. Guys, I want to just dive into a little bit about you. So, Jonte, can you first with you, when you came, you were in grade 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen you make a massive transition throughout those 3 years. Can you talk a little bit of what changed? Because I remember because I went to you, said, do you want to play sports? You're like, nah, I'm too busy now. Personal project, maybe next year, remember? What changed that? So can you talk a little bit about your progress?
When I first came to Mongolia, I put on a bit of weight, so I was quite large, and I think I just was underconfident as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then over time, I kind of saw how inclusive all the boys were, how inclusive all the teachers were. I decided, I need to start losing weight. So I started losing weight over the next years, and it was good having all the boys' support. Like I had Morris and all the boys always pushing me, coming to the gym with me. And then they'll be like, oh, well, why don't you just try out for the team? And the teacher's like, yeah, you should try out. And it just went from that to then weekends, I'd feel more fit. And the weekends would come, the boys would like invite me out, and I'd be like, oh, you know what, let me give it a try. And then I would just constantly like just trying new things. And then I kind of got to the point where I was like, oh, well, like I've always enjoyed sport, but it was just my confidence grew back over the 3 years. And then I was able to, I don't know, kind of be back to my original self, I guess. And I was able to enjoy time with all the boys and play sports. And yeah, it was really good.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great to hear, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Especially that those connection with the boys, right? That being pushed by each other. It's really good.
Yeah. If I didn't have that, I don't think I would have been in the position that I am today. With the support of ISU and the boys, I don't think it would have helped me. Yeah, if I didn't have that, it wouldn't have helped. So yeah.
That's great, man. It's good to hear.
Yeah. Are you, Marisi?
For me, I'd say the biggest change would be my approach to sport and I guess life in general. Like you said, like with that tight knit like group of the boys, like of course, like as a young kid, like in grade 9 and 10, you always want to like beat the older kids, be the best that you can be, get first place. But then I guess as I just got older, a bit more mature, I realized like this, like I'm not playing sport for like the first place. So I'm like playing it for the experience because I'm only going to get to have this game with this group of people like one time. They really like become your family. Like that last game against ESM, like you never know when it's gonna really be your last game. So you really just gotta play for that sort of family connection. Just enjoy the experience rather than like trying to focus on like being the best. But then also make sure you're focusing on sport for like the right reasons. Like Jonte said, with like that great group of people, like especially for example, like the basketball team, like I know everyone left training like happy as like everyone was smiling after training. Like it just really like if you're focusing on it for like mental health and making sure like you're just enjoying every experience you get. Like I guess that was my biggest change.
Sure, for sure. What about now? What are you guys up to now that you're back home? I know COVID probably takes away some opportunities to be active and involved, but what kind of stuff are you getting up to?
For myself, I signed up for a half Ironman in December. So that's like a swim, bike, and then a run. So I signed up for one of those because I was like, well, I can't swim and I can't really bike. I didn't even have a bike, so I was like, can't swim, I can't bike, so I might as well sign up for it.
Well, let's do it.
See how it goes. So luckily I've got a job, so I was able to buy myself a bike and a bike indoor trainer that I ride on with COVID restrictions. And yeah, and I'm just slowly working my way up to becoming a better swimmer, better rider, and a better runner. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And Jonte, what about that ride for research?
Oh yeah. So at the moment, what I just signed up for is called Ride for Research, and it's a 200-kilometer ride over 2 days. So you ride 100 kilometers to a town out of Perth, and you camp there for the night, and you ride 100 kilometers back. And it's to raise money for cancer research for the Perkins Institute of Medical Research. And yeah, my friend is actually doing it, and she was like, she sent out a thing who would like to do it. And my motto this year is we kind of just do it. Like, just like Nike, I guess, just do it. Like, you're not going to be able to do it again. So I thought I might as well just go for it. And the way I see it is that, like, because it's on October the 17th, and October the 17th is going to come anyway, no matter what I do. So if I just have something to train for, I'll be doing something more fun on that day, I guess. So yeah, so I'm currently raising money and fundraising for it, and the money goes directly towards the Perkins Institute of Medical Research. So it's really cool.
So for everybody who's watching our podcast, I'll put the link in the description, and I will share it with our ISU community, Jonte. So support Jonte on his trip.
Yeah,
we'll do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Morris, so now you're in the army, right?
Yes, sir.
I remember when we were talking about that. It's actually very funny. We had a while ago, CD, we had Buena on the podcast.
Yeah.
Who was at Annapolis at the Navy Academy, and this guy changed. He was like super military. So how have you changed? Now you're in there in that system.
I guess the biggest change for me would be definitely my maturity. I guess like always in high school, you always joke around, have fun, but I guess the biggest change for me would be like, I guess mentally switching on and like everything that you do. So I just had a tough month of like initial training. So you do all your marching, your like physical training. And I guess that really made me think like you can always say that like, oh yeah, I can do 15 push-ups. I can do like however many sit-ups. But when you actually have to like get down and dirty with it and actually do it, that's when like you really, really discover like your true self, like how far you can push yourself and that motivation. So I guess that's been the biggest thing because that's kind of in all areas of life now for me as well. So whether I'm like, if I start failing classes, I'll get really, really hammered on. So it's just making sure I'm always like switched on and applying myself like pretty much 100% at everything I do.
Sure, that's awesome.
So how many push-ups do you have now, Morris? How many push-ups? Sorry, City.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
So we just had our academy fitness test the other week. So we do it to a 2-second cadence. I got 36 push-ups, 100 like sit-ups, but the sit-ups are pretty easy. It's feet held. And then we have to do a 2.4K run in under 13 minutes. And I think my time for that was 9:52.
Nice.
He's sharp.
And I guess the biggest thing I've noticed is coming from a small community, you're like, oh, like this kid's like a freak. Oh, like this kid's a freak. But then when you like step out into like that even bigger pool, like at university, there's like some insane kids out there. Like some kids are running like 8 minutes 22 on the 2.4K run, and you just go like, wow, like if the game's here like in high school, it really just does go off that like another notch.
Wow.
And I guess that's also been a good thing because like at the end of the day, you're competing with all of those kids as well. Like once I finish, we'll all get placed in like a ranked order and then handed out our jobs from there. So it's like the healthy level of competitiveness, I would say.
Good.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? When you go out and then you realize like there's more than just the kids that were in my high school or in our conference.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've kind of taken away from sports that's helped you now that you're out into the real world?
So
I would say being a good listener and also being open-minded in your approach to everything. Like I'm not always going to be perfect in my like basketball drills. So whether it's like listening to that coach or listening to that older player, just really, really making sure that I'm like listening carefully to that and applying it to myself. I guess that feedback is like, I guess the best way that you learn. And then also like being open-minded in that team, like teamwork, especially for me, like in the army is a really big thing as an officer. So being able to lead with that like open-minded approach, like making sure that I'm choosing the best decision, but also like making sure that I'm making the right decision for everyone in my team and making sure that I'm at that round table where everyone's throwing ideas in and just creating good outcomes.
Awesome. Jonte.
I'd probably say that it's never, or one thing I've taken from sports is that it's never easy at the start, but don't let that demotivate you. So I know that when I first started riding, when I first started running, I couldn't even run a kilometer. I was very unfit and stuff like that. But if you just push yourself to go out there that day and you run 1.1K, you've already done 100 meters more than you did last time. So I think with the mentality that sports has taught me, it's just you just keep pushing. So even if it's not always 100%, like you should strive for 100%. But even if you do 80%, it's better than 0% that you would have done if you didn't do it. So I think that's something that I just always constantly think like, oh, well, if I get out there today and do it, even if I don't do it as well as I probably could have, I'm still doing it. So it goes with sports ISU, like 5 a.m., 5:30 morning practices. You're like, oh, so cold, especially with Mongolia. But then even if you arrive, you know that soon the coach will be there, your friends will be there. You'll start waking up and you'll start training. So yeah, as long as I think you just step in and just kind of do it, then yeah, it's probably the hardest but the easiest thing to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Guys, I found the comments Morris and actually Jonte made too about, when you go and you see these kids who are high level, right? Do you feel like, because we are in a small country here, very isolated, Mongolia. I remember we went down to Beijing for football, and that was tough because there were some very good teams, right? do you think that we prepared you enough well to cope with these, losses or seeing these kids who are very talented? Did we help you enough with that as our sports programs here?
Yeah, I would say definitely, because we did have that like real tight knit like teamwork as well, and I guess that really helped us focus on us. And I guess that was the biggest thing, just making sure that as a team or like as individuals, we're just that little bit better than we were yesterday. Because like for me, I'm not going to be able to like beat some of these kids in like the 2.4K run, but if I'm running it that like 5 seconds faster than I were like last week or something like that, that's the best way that I can improve. And I guess I'd say that was really, really good. Like all the coaching staff, they were really focused on us. And like in preparing for games, we're never like, oh, like, have you seen that kid? Like he's a freak, or like, have you seen their goal? He's like 6'6" or whatever. But we were all just focused on like what we were doing, which is really, really positive.
Yeah, and I think the edge that we had in Mongolia was the fact that everything in Mongolia is done the hard way. Or the winter is extreme, summer is extreme. Everything is, the animals are extreme. So it kind of that toughness that Mongolia brought, I guess, was able to be portrayed in our trainings, and I think we did the best that we could with what we had. So like it would be football season, it'd be tryouts, and we'd have to do it inside because it'd be snowing on the outside. So I think all this stuff kind of taught us resilience as well, how you're not going to have everything that you need, but as long as you're still able to do stuff. Like you see the inspirational football players and NBA players and stuff come, like show that they came from nothing and the greatest stars in the world. So I kind of just think it gave us a taste of what that really is, because like, even though we all came from amazing places on the world, it was still, you'd see, I remember when Macau for basketball, we're walking back to the school and the Macau football team was already training. And so we're like, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? But it was too cold to be training outside. So I think stuff like that really taught you that you have to do the best that you can. And I think that's what the faculties at ISU and Mongolia gave us, is that we can do the best that we can with what we have. And it kind of makes you appreciate everything more as well. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great to hear, guys. That's exactly what we're doing, trying to do with supporting you to become a little bit better every day. So thank you. That's great to hear.
One thing that we usually like to ask the alumni is, what advice would you give maybe like a younger version of yourself, or younger athletes or potential athletes that are listening to this as they start their athletic journey?
Yeah, you go, Morris.
I would say, kind of like Jonte said before, is look out for your mates. Like at the end of the day, like it's pretty much all team sports. But if you're going through that like shared hardship together, like the guy to the right of you, the guy to the left of you, like they're both either just as cold as you are in the morning, just as tired as you are in the morning. And if you're all like working together as a team, that's how you progress. And then I'd also say really keep a balanced like lifestyle in everything you do. So don't go like too crazy over sports, like love your sport, but also at the end of the day, there's like bigger things in life. So making sure you're keeping on top of like your academics, or like you're eating right. You're also like getting healthy amounts of sleep and just practicing good habits like that. They make you like really like well-rounded person, and that makes you just a much better athlete.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think the best thing about being a young athlete is because you're young, everything's trial and error. So for example, like I know when I was young, like 15, 16, I wasn't eating the best, I wasn't sleeping the best. Those are the number one things, but you will learn that over time. If you put in effort, you will learn how to eat properly and what works for yourself. And I think that's also a good thing to know. And also the best thing about Mongolia, like if you want to, especially with the school, is that you can go into the mountains if you want. Like get some of your friends, some of your teammates, and like go play footy with the boys, rent out a place, or you can go rent out a basketball court if it's too cold, or you guys can just go for a hike in the mountains. Like it gives you such a large option. There's so many options to do that. We're more fortunate enough to be able to afford it as well. That because when you come to a place where like Australia, it's so expensive. It's like $50 an hour to rent a place like that. For a Mongolian, it's like 50,000 tugruk. So really take it, like use what you have, and yeah, it's just really good how you can do that. So my advice would to be just use the opportunities that you have in Mongolia, and to your advantage. And once you become year 11, 12, you'll be set. So, yeah.
I'm actually, guys, how you talk, I'm very proud, man. You guys are 19. I wish I talked like that when I was 19. It's very,
No kidding.
you're right. Guys, I got actually two more things I just want to talk to you guys about. Could you share, because you've been on a few trips, could you share the most funniest, most memorable moment you can get back from your trips? Morris and then Jonte.
Well, I guess the funniest one for me would have to be Dulwich football in Suzhou. Just watching Aldrich and Ethan just mess around when they were rooming together would always be the funniest thing, just seeing them down at breakfast. But then also all the little things as well, like on every team trip, like you really just value those like little moments, like the team walks where everyone's just joking and cracking laughs, like walking to the school or on the buses. Just those little experiences that you don't really think about in the moment, but they leave that like lasting, like that was really funny, or that was just like the best.
And I think we're still finding out who was messing up your room in Macau, Morris. I'm not sure who did that, but Jonte.
We actually have a really similar thing here as well in the academy. If you leave your door unlocked, there are like anyone has the right to go into your room and mess things up. Actually happened to one of my friends last week where they took everything out of his room, desk, chair, bed, moved it all outside and set up his room outside.
Oh, I think the best part about the troops and like the funniest things would always either be the airports. There'd be times when you're the most tired that nothing makes sense, but it's also funny. Like there was one time where I was sleeping. Actually, Makili always brings it up. It's like we were in Beijing airport. I think I'm coming back from that trip in Shenzhen, and I was like sleeping on a bench. And I tried to wake me up, and I told her I'd go away or something like that. And like, there's just all these little things where like you're deprived of sleep, but everything's just so funny. Like Nacho losing his alien card. It's like it wasn't like get to sit in the airport. Or like just those little like you'd be walking to the bus, and it was just being able to be with your friends. Anything that would be funny because you're just focusing on sport and having a good time while kind of seeing the world. So yeah, I think that was probably the best part, the funniest things. Yeah.
Yeah, those are always the most stressful times for us ADs and coaches. We're trying to get everyone through the airport and no one has any sleep and can't follow directions. No one knows what's going on. So
I can imagine.
Good. Awesome. Yeah, those trips are always amazing. I got a few awesome pictures. One of Ignacio flying through the air at the football tournament. Remember that one? So, it's those memories that we create, right? And 10 years down the road, we still laugh about those things and we forget the scores, but we keep those memories with us, right? So that's great that you guys could share that with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to go to those as well. Like without you guys, and we wouldn't be able to have the domestic sports that we did, and we wouldn't be able to have the international sports that we did as well. So we are very grateful for what you guys do as well. So yeah.
Thank you. I will never forget spending the whole night with your parents, Jonte, at the Chinese embassy. That was lovely.
Yeah, that would probably have to be the best moment about the trips. I think Morris and I sitting at the embassy trying to get a Beijing visa, like 4 o'clock in the morning, comfy toes. That's where true friendship is made, right there.
True friendship at the Chinese embassy.
Yeah. Oh, times.
Guys, I have actually one more thing, and then maybe Mr. CD has one more question. I saw something that you wanted to do a ride or going through Australia together, and you had like a GoFundMe. Is that still happening? Did that happen, or do you still need funding?
Well, what we were doing is so we set up like we thought, well, we didn't get to graduate, anything like that, so we were going to travel to Perth. We're going to travel to WA, Morris is going to meet me there, and then we're going to go all the way up around. Well, we're originally going to go around Australia. We decided not to. We're just going to go up to the top of Western Australia and all the way down. But then with COVID and stuff like that, we decided we won't. So hopefully in the future. Actually, I think Morris and I are sussing out a trip for December, somewhere. But hopefully, yeah, we'll be able to get to that one day. But yeah.
It's made me realize like the really small windows in life, especially with like my leave now. Like I'm off for the next 2 weeks now, but like it takes a lot to put together like an ACAMIS trips. Like you guys working really hard, and it's that like really small window where you just have that like 1 week or those couple of days just to like really pack in as much like fun or an experience like that. So I guess that's what me and Jonte will hopefully be looking forward to when everything kind of settles down, because yeah, just the uncertainty and pace of like the whole kind of COVID world now. You're not sure when you're going to have that next window of like just that week of knowing that you're just going to be like relaxing with friends, having fun.
Yeah, I came to Brisbane for 3 days for Michile's birthday, and then my flight got cancelled, so now I've been here for a week. And then when I fly back to Perth, I have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. So like, yeah, it turned from a 3 day holiday into like a 3 week. So yeah.
Wow.
So the uncertainty is pretty hard, but we'll get through it. It's all good.
Yeah, you get through. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, it's been great talking to you guys. I like I said, I recognize you as soon as you logged onto the call, and just some of the maturity in your answers and your responses too. Just shows like how much you did take away from your time at ISU and playing sports in Mongolia. Just do it, right? Just even if it's 80%, just get out there and do it. Take advantage of what you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah, guys, I'm very proud. I'm very humbled actually to talk to you guys today, that you took the time for us to share your experience, your story. And I'm just very happy that we just push you in the right direction. And in the end, you guys got to do it, and you're doing it. I think you've got a very good support system behind you. Your parents, I know them well. That's very important. And we have those memories, and we don't forget those, and that's just gonna keep going. And we just want to thank you so much for being here today, share your story with us, and it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us as well.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. All good.
And whenever I'm doing PT in the morning in Canberra, it's really cold, but I always remind myself like it's not as cold as -30 in Mongolia, so always helps me get through it.
Jonte, do you have your shirt like Morris is having right now? Do you have the shirt? You've got it, right?
I've got a hoodie though. I've got an ISU hoodie.
But you don't have this shirt?
Oh, I've got that. Yeah. I've got
Good. I was worried. Okay, good.
Yeah. It's really
awesome,
cool.
guys. Hey, please say hi to your parents. Say hi to your brother Morris and to your sister Jonte. And it's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
All right,
okay, guys. See ya. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we just wrapped up our interview with Jonte and Morris, and it's great to talk to those guys. Like I said in the interview, I've seen them. I didn't really know who they were when we scheduled the interview, but after seeing them, I know that they've definitely been involved at ISU. And for me, the biggest takeaways were just the maturity in their responses. Just how they think about Jonte saying, just do it, even if you're not 100%. Doing something is better than doing nothing. Signing up for a triathlon with no training, not being able to swim or didn't have a bike, just being willing to kind of try it, even saying like, October 17th is going to come, whether I'm doing the ride or I'm not doing the ride. So might as well make it interesting. Just that level of maturity and kind of perspective about the world, I think is what really stood out to me, interviewing those two guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was happy to talk to them. I didn't see them for a year, right? And then I always when you don't see people for a long time and then you see them, you just you just continue like you have, like you saw them yesterday, very humble boys, very caring. All the IB learner profiles, these boys have it. They're very actually happy with the things we help them with here in Mongolia. So yeah, it was great to talk to them today. They shared a lot of good information for younger athletes. Just very humble, very caring in general. Just great boys.
Mm-hmm. It was nice to see them too, kind of realize how much effort goes into these international trips. So, hopefully if there's any current athletes listening or watching that just appreciate how much work your coaches and your administrators put in to make these tournaments and stuff possible. Because a lot does go in behind the scenes just to make sure you get there safe and you have a place to stay, you've got food, all those things that you don't really realize, especially when you're sleep deprived, like Jonte had said.
Yeah.
Just the adults that are making sure everything's going as smooth as possible.
And with our podcast,
for them.
Yeah, exactly. And with our podcast, we always try to, focus on life skills through sports. Medals are part of sports. Winning is part of it. But these boys showed you that it's trying to get better every day, a little bit. It's They go back to Australia and they see these other kids who are very talented, but they tell themselves, "Hey, I have to better myself. Don't look at others." Of course, it can be an inspiration, but try to get better every day, a little by little. And that's the kind of philosophy that we preach. And I'm happy that we had a little part of that with Jonte and Morris. And, they will grow, they'll get better in what they're doing. And it's great to keep in contact with them in the future. I will add the information about Jonte's rides for the fundraiser in the description. So if you want more information about that, just please look in the description. Excellent.
And thank everyone for watching or listening to the show. We appreciate you. And if you haven't yet, like and subscribe so that way you'll get the next one straight to you.
Thank you, Jonte Morris, and thank you everybody for watching.
Take care. See you next time.
Bye-bye.